that this could only be solved by force, and that the only question was when and how. And from that secret meeting on, Hitler continued to plot his eventual assault upon Europe.
Again and again, the eyewitnesses and documents brought Hitler's own damning words. It is my unalterable decision to squash Czechoslovakia by military action in the near future. It is the job of the political leaders to bring about the militarily and politically suitable moment. The world now looked in on a chilling series of top meetings with Hitler, von Papen, Goering, Frick, Keitel, Jodl, von Ribbentrop, and the rest. Where the Sudetenland, Czechoslovakia, and Austria were subjected to secret, merciless threats of military annihilation to make their fall to the Germans seem a desire from within. The prosecution traced back the carefully forged chain of criminal moves. The trumped-up evidence of the Reichstag fire to create crisis. The orchestration against perceived enemies of the Reich, trade unions, the churches. Beginning with the Nuremberg laws of 1935, Jackson dug into the campaign against the Jews, the legislation destroying their property and civil rights, their systematic exclusion from professional, cultural life and education, ending with vandalism, violence, and imprisonment on the way to calculated war and murder. Goering had summed it up. He said, "I would hate to be a Jew in Germany today." Continuing to weave the net of a conspiracy against peace at the expense of the more sensational and easily grasped atrocities, Prosecutor Robert Jackson pressed doggedly through the aggressive war charges. One by one, he documented the incriminating secret maneuvers of Adolf Hitler, each aimed at naked aggression and provable by a trail of evidence. Documents under Hitler's signature read, "No question of sparing Poland. We are left with the decision to attack Poland at the first suitable opportunity." He would say, "I am only afraid that at the last moment some Schweinhund will make a proposal for mediation." The details that emerged were dry but unmistakable. How the men in the dock had cynically, murderously pushed an entire world toward devastation. The evidence showed that military destruction had not been enough for the Nazis. Plans in place set in motion a systematic annihilation of intelligentsia, nobility, and clergy. The Jews and Gypsies would have their own hideous attention, losing 6,000,000 and 500,000 lives, respectively. Directives were found that invited the lynching of Allied airmen without interference from the police. Other decrees ordered Labor Czar Fritz Sokol to deliver 5 million captive workers into slavery that was often a death sentence. A Nacht und Nebel, or night and fog order, had the promotion of pure terror at its roots. People disappeared forever without charge or trial. The conspiracy spiraled with attacks on Norway, Denmark, Holland, Belgium, France, Greece, Yugoslavia, and Russia. Jackson pointed out that Germany never declared war under international rules, but struck always without warning and always against the signed assurances of treaties. Goering would later boast that the Nazis had considered your treaties just so much toilet paper. All this conspiratorial horror, wrung from dry paper, would come to light separately from the graphically presented terrors of the genocidal death camps. The prosecution would show a film called The Nazi Plan, based on early German propaganda films and meant to demonstrate that they had planned aggression from the first. Its effect on the defendants was electric and jocular. Chirac thrilled to his marching Hitler Youth. Goering gleefully shouted the name of each plane and pilot he recognized. He whispered, Even Justice Jackson will want to join the party now. Schacht, watching his war production glorified, asked, "Can you see anything wrong with that?" And awed, von Ribbentrop breathed, "Couldn't you just feel the force of the Führer's personality?" The mood of the defendants changed sharply when the film turned to the cruel and humiliating kangaroo court trial of those accused in the bomb plot against Hitler. As the Nazi prosecutor screeched abuse, the accused at Nuremberg soberly contrasted the vicious justice of the Third Reich with the even-handed tone of their own trial. Jackson, the brilliant rhetorician, was less skilled in the courtroom arts of cross-examination. His shortcomings were often shared by lesser prosecutors who became tangled in droning details. World interest waned.
The fear of Justice Jackson was that the moral authority would just leak out of this trial as it dragged on and on and on. In the end, it lasted 11 months. He attempted to try to stifle the amount of just sheer paper that the German defense could introduce.
Jackson began to see the International Military Tribunal as foes arrayed against him. Especially vexing were his fellow American Francis Biddle and the Englishman, Sir Geoffrey Lawrence.
Lawrence wanted to rob the defendants of any capacity to claim that they weren't given a complete defense. Goering has just testified on his own behalf, and then he's being cross-examined by Justice Jackson. This is the dramatic high point, and everyone is waiting to see how the champion of justice and democracy deals with the champion of Nazi evil.
I want to get what's necessary to run the kind of a system that you set up in Germany.
Goering has a leg up in this thing because Justice Lawrence keeps ruling that Goering must be allowed to say as much as he wants to say. The usual rules of cross-examination are that the prosecutor is able to crowd the witness, to keep pushing him with relentless questions towards a trap and then spring the trap. But when Goering could virtually deliver lectures on the political science of Nazi Germany, Jackson was never able to crowd him like that.
Goering's 2.5-day diatribe turned the court into a Nazi rally and made him the defendant's hero, like an athlete who had saved the game. Had Jackson made a mistake in not going directly after the most hideous and hateful of the crimes and criminals? Would his great hope for convictions on a cosmic scale allow the main case against war to slip away into its own night and fog? Between the enormous scope of Robert Jackson's indictment, American technical miscues in prosecution, and the surprising fairness of the proceedings, the Nuremberg defendants began to believe that they might yet prevail. But now the tide turned with the shocking testimony of the Nazi butchers who had run the concentration camps and extermination squads. Their testimony jolted the world back to attention. Almost offhandedly, Gestapo officer Otto Ohlendorf made his admissions.
How many men, women, and children did you kill during that year? And he answered, 90,000. With that information, we were able to develop that contemporaneously with the German assault against Russia, 4 special action groups of the Gestapo and SD were sent into the occupied territories behind the German armies with the specific purpose of rounding up and killing all Jews and Gypsies, intelligentsia that they could get their hands on. The estimate is that 2 million people were killed by these special action groups.
Ferdinand Höss was the commandant of Auschwitz. Höss explained his mission in great detail and without any great emotion.
He had been called to Berlin by Heinrich Himmler, and Himmler had explained to him that there was a secondary war involving the struggle between the Germans and the Jews, that if Germany did not deal with the Jews at this time, the Jews would certainly destroy Germany. And it was Höss's mission